Breaking news. Michigan has stand down. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel and hit the notification bell. I told you this morning to hit the notification bell because you got to keep your head on a swivel. We can be coming up at live anytime. We did it again this afternoon because there's big breaking news. So subscribe to the channel, smash the like button, share the video with your family and friends. And if you want to support this show, if you love our content, if you're looking for it during the week, if you love our show, support it through a donation. Hit that $, make a comment, and I'll get to it as fast as I can. Welcome into the corner. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a PATC legend with your comments and with your phone calls later in the show. And we're going to get to the phone calls as soon as possible. I was working on another episode. I told the little general, I said I'm working on an episode, about a 10-minute episode, talking about who's on the hot seat, the changes on the hot seats. I was going to argue a little bit with a CBS Sports article. I was going to have you guys tell me I'm wrong all again, but I had to push it aside. Breaking news. Michigan has stood down. What does it mean? What could it mean? And before we get into this, I hope the Michigan Wolverine fans come back to the show. because I've lost a ton of you. I have shot it to you straight. We did it, peek around the corner. We have to. Credibility is the only thing we got. I hope you understand that I have no dislike for Michigan. None whatsoever. I know there's Ohio State Buckeye fan. Look, everybody gives playful elbows to each other. We got Jeff Olson, the evil badger in the house, right here. Him and I go at it all the time. But he's one of my best friends, and he's an evil badger. I have nothing against Michigan, but we had to shoot it to you straight on this story. Michigan, the evidence is overwhelming, and Tony Petitti did the right thing. And for all the college football reporters' knees that buckled, well, we didn't buckle here at Peek Around the Corner. I can tell you that. Let's get to the breaking story. Keep your head on a swivel. Tell me in the chat what I should do on X, formerly known as Twitter. Where should I go? Keep your head on a swivel because, it takes me a good 5 minutes to get this thing cranked up. So, the first report of this was Nicole Auerbach. Excuse me. Michigan announces that Jim Harbaugh and the Big Ten resolved their pending litigation. Harbaugh will remain suspended through the end of the regular season. This morning, the university, Coach Harbaugh, and the Big Ten resolved their pending litigation. The conference agreed to close its investigation. The university and Coach Harbaugh agreed to accept the 3-game suspension. Coach Harbaugh, with the university's support, decided to accept this sanction to return the focus to our student athletes in their performance on the field. The conference has confirmed that it is not aware of any information suggesting Coach Harbaugh's involvement in the allegations. The university continues to cooperate fully with the NCAA's investigation. So the Big Ten investigation is over. Let me tell you what I think is going on here. Here's the other part, the statement from the Big Ten. The Big Ten Conference commitment to student athletes, sportsmanship, and the commissioner's duty to protect the integrity of competition will never waver. Today's decision by the University of Michigan to withdraw its legal challenge against the conference November 10th notice of disciplinary action is indicative of the high standards and values. It's also indicative of the overwhelming evidence. I'll get back to that. Of the high standards and values of the conference and the university seek to uphold. The University of Michigan is a valued member of the Big Ten Conference, and the conference will continue to work cooperatively with the university and the NCAA during this process. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, the investigation continues. The interviews are probably just beginning to ramp up. Evidence is overwhelming. That is our strongly held opinion here at Peek Around the Corner. Tony Petitti acted in accordance to the Big Ten bylaws. Act in accordance to the sportsmanship policy. To John Bacon, no, Tony Petitti was not over his head. To Steve Dace, your anger now has to be directed toward the University of Michigan. Not to Ohio State, not to the Big Ten. I could go on and on and on through the list of the Michigan beat writers, website owners, columnists. This is now, if you're still upset with the actions of the Big Ten, now you got to turn your eyes towards Michigan, the University of Michigan. And Michigan did what they had to do. It's overwhelming evidence. The NCAA's investigation continues. Now, there is no direct evidence that Jim Harbaugh knew about this in-person scouting scandal. And there may never be. And maybe he never knew about it. If he didn't, wow, is he... then he's a figurehead coach on the sideline, to be honest with you. That's the best I can say about Jim Harbaugh right now. If he didn't know this was going on, then he's just a figurehead. He's not involved. He's really not involved on the sidelines or in the game plan during the week. That's the kindest thing I can say about Jim Harbaugh. But anyways, look, there's ways to do things. We don't know if Jim Harbaugh was directly involved, but man, oh man, oh man, somebody was other than Connor Stallions, because there's no way Connor Stallions is getting on the Central Michigan sideline with a Central Michigan shirt, hat, pants. But anyways, that's the breaking news. We have more here. From Football Scoop, of course, people are debating on what does this mean. I'm letting you know what I mean. I think Michigan has the evidence, and the evidence keeps coming in. The University of Michigan knows what's going on up until a certain point, and the evidence is overwhelming. Let's take a look at Football Scoop's article here. Real quick, Michigan to accept Big Ten suspension of Jim Harbaugh. He will miss the Ohio State game Thursday. Today's agreement means Harbaugh will serve a suspension for 6 of the Michigan's 12 regular season games due to 2 different investigations into the Wolverine football. Well, that was quick. A day before a scheduled hearing where Michigan was set to acquire a temporary restraining order against the Big Ten's 3-game suspension of Jim Harbaugh, the school announced it had reached an agreement with the conference and there will be no hearing. Harbaugh will accept the Big Ten suspension, meaning he will miss the next 2 games. Michigan's statement acknowledges the NCAA's investigation continues. Although in accepting the suspension, Michigan got the Big Ten to agree to close its end of the investigation. And ladies and gentlemen, how do I say this? Michigan didn't get anything out of this. Big Ten the Big Ten was relying on the NCAA's investigation. Other than the due process that Tony Petitti was doing when he talked to the coaches, the athletic directors, the presidents, and the University of Michigan. But the evidence came from the NCAA. The Big Ten, Tony Petitti made his ruling. The Big Ten board gave Tony Petitti the ability to add on an extra suspension, go from 2 games to 3 games. That's already been done. Michigan got nothing here. And Big Ten wasn't going to do anything else. This is Michigan making sure that they are on the right side of history when it comes to fully cooperating with the NCAA and the Big Ten. The Big Ten said Thursday, today it will continue working with the NCAA. The Big Ten gave up absolutely nothing in this deal. Absolutely nothing. Tony Petitti had the evidence, he had the political cover, and he had the grapefruits to do what he did. The Big Ten Conference commitment to student-athlete sportsmanship and the commissioner's duty to protect the integrity of competition will never waver. Today's decision by the University of Michigan to withdraw its legal challenge against the conference November 10th notice of disciplinary action is indicative of the high standards and values and the overwhelming evidence. Michigan got nothing in this deal because the investigation continues. Other than making sure they got on the right side of history. And I got to believe, we were led to believe, about 10 days ago, 9 days ago, 8 days ago, there are people inside the University of Michigan Board of Regents, we know at least one, does not agree with what's going on at the University of Michigan football program. They definitely do not agree with the tone and the tenor of the president. Really, this is quite the story. Now, it said at the time, we're going to open up the phone lines real quick. We're not going to waste any time. Michigan's not going anywhere. They're staying in the Big Ten. Again, then the amount of inaccurate stories that came out of the Michigan beat writers, website owners, well, that's going to be legendary for many, many years. I got to tell you. We don't know the depth of what went wrong at the University of Michigan's football program. We don't know who was involved with Connor Stallions. We don't know if it involves gambling or whatever. We don't know that. And I'm not going to speculate on the gambling piece until I have somebody who I talk to say, Greg, go ahead. You can do it. You can call me up and you can speculate on it. You can speculate on the chat. I'll bring it up on a donation right away. But I will not do it in the monologue. Not until I get some real steam to it. Let me get to your comments real quick, and then I'm going to open up the phone lines. Real quick here. This is a breaking story. Michigan has stood down from the Big Ten because the Big Ten, they've got the goods. Overwhelming evidence. The Walking Geek. If Michigan went to court, the Big Ten would have submitted evidence that hasn't gone public yet, and the media fans would have hounded the Big Ten to punish more. That sounds reasonable to me. Remember, in those letters back and forth from the Big Ten to Michigan, from Michigan to the Big Ten, but more seriously, the Big Ten letter response. The Big Ten said that the NCAA has more evidence. They know certain things. Not everything was public during what the Big Ten did here in giving Jim Harbaugh a 3-game suspension. There is more there. What it is, I don't know. I do not know. You can go ahead and speculate, again, with your phone calls in the chat. But again, Mireya, thank you so much for letting us have this live breaking news show. It is massive, Mireya. And wow, Michigan has stood down. Immaculate. Seems like some folks just like to criticize the Big Ten. Well, and that's, I think we're all guilty of that. We all, Big Ten, SEC, whatever. I was PATC. We reported a couple weeks ago how hot those schools were, the 13 other schools. We went down the reasons why. One of the biggest reasons was the health of the student-athlete football players of the opposing teams going against Michigan. Tony Petitti had all the political cover. I know people were focusing on Michigan's reaction. Michigan's going to do this. Michigan's going to do that. Michigan's going to bully the Big Ten. They're not. The worm has turned. Tony Petitti's really not going to do it. He's rushing it. Oh, he did it while Jim Harbaugh was on an airplane. Oh, my goodness. Like that versus what's been going on for 2.5 years makes any difference whatsoever. I don't know. You all saw it. You all saw knees buckle amongst the media. Maybe because, and you saw the knees buckle at Fox Sports. You've seen it. You've seen it. That's why it's good not to have any strings attached. I tell you that. I don't worry about access. I worry about the PATC community. I do not worry about access. Our knees don't buckle here at Peek Around the Corner. We're going to open up the phone lines. I know people want to talk about this. Give me a moment, everybody. Give me a moment. Hold on. Hold on. The phone lines are now open. Now, if you give us a call, 763-260-1333. The lines are open. We're focusing on Michigan. You could talk about anything, but we're really focused on Michigan standing down. Number two, if you make a donation to the show, the comment section, we'll get to your comments right away. There's a lot of comments I'm not going to be able to get to. Skull Ducky, breaking news. A new member of the PATC community was born last night. Wow. Congratulations, Skull Ducky. Congratulations, Skull Ducky. We got another member of the PATC community. Wow, big news. Big news. We got breaking news all over the place. Jonathan Price. Michigan didn't want smoke of the discovery that would bring. Now, Ross Dellinger. Whoops. Sorry about that. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. Ross Dellinger, the key line in here. Conference agreed to close its investigation. The Big Ten had left the possibility of more penalties as part of its investigation. That appears no longer the case since the investigation is closed. Again, semantics. The Big Ten wasn't going to do anything more in this year. That's the truth. The Big Ten gave up nothing. Nothing. They weren't going to suspend one of the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator or somebody else. They were not going to step in front of Michigan's ability to compete for the Big Ten championship. There wasn't going to be any more penalties until the NCAA hands it down. Big Ten gave up nothing. Michigan, what do they get out of this? Well, they finally get on the right side of history. The university. The pressure internally, the evidence that the president was seeing, even though he denied it on a November 8th letter to the Big Ten. Remember that letter? Remember that denial? There was no evidence here. Do I still have that? Hold on. Let me see if I still got that Ono letter. Hold on. Here's Ono's tweet. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Ono's tweet from 4 days ago. Countless members of the University of Michigan family have reached out to me over the weekend, and I wanted to express my appreciation. Like any community, we face our share of challenges and adversity. There have been many such moments in our history, but as our team showed so clearly yesterday, we will respond to any challenge head on with a conviction to do better and to emerge even stronger. Go Blue. And this was mocked all over the place, including here at Peek Around the Corner. It's okay to cheer on your football team. It's okay to say great game, just like you would with your women's volleyball team, your hockey teams. But to say, talking about adversity and challenges and moments in our history, give me a break. Michigan screwed Michigan. The Big Ten did not screw Michigan. Michigan screwed Michigan. Okay, the phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. Give us a call. Give us a call. Well, like I say, they cried about just wanting due process and then rejected the chance to have their day in court. It says a lot. It says a lot about the overwhelming evidence.
Call from
Charles Chamberlain.
Charles Chamberlain, thanks for calling, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, what's frustrating to me about this situation, I think what's frustrating to a lot of college football fans, is that when there are this evidence of cheating that comes up mid-season, the universities, the NCAA, the conferences, they do something. But what's going to be the outcome for this season? Michigan's still competing. Michigan's likely still going to compete for a Big Ten championship, or they've got the opportunity.
Yeah.
They're still in the national championship playoff ranking. And the reality is they probably don't have the recruits they have without the success that they've had from cheating. They probably don't have the wins that they have without the success that they've had from cheating. And on Saturdays, who do we see coaching the team? We see offensive coordinators. We see defensive coordinators who are on video receiving information from this guy who is out there recording opponents. I think this is the big problem that the NCAA has. I understand why the Big Ten would step down. I think you're right. I think they've got the pound of flesh they're going to get for now. And I understand why Michigan would run, because they don't want to have more information come public. It's just going to look worse. I think they're hoping they can make it through the season, and then the NCAA will have some finding in the off season. Harbaugh will walk away to some other job, maybe in the pros will still make money, and the only people who end up with real consequences are the fans of the sport, and that's frustrating.
Yes, everything you said is correct, Charles, and I don't have an answer. I know I don't have a good answer. I know that the Big Ten and the NCAA does not want to penalize the student athletes that are playing on Michigan right now. You're correct. Look, it isn't just about knowing all the signs of your opponent before the game starts. It's the ability to rack up all these wins, blow all the other teams out. It helps your recruiting. You know, the momentum, the inertia, the small ball, the small snowball rolling down the mountain becomes a big old ball. It's like an avalanche because of all the momentum Michigan's been gaining. And in-person scouting played a part of it. And there is victims to this. There's student athletes on the other teams. There's running backs, there's receivers, there's quarterbacks, there's offensive linemen, defensive linemen who did have a disadvantage on the field of play because Michigan knew the hand signals like nobody's business. Charles, you're absolutely correct. I just know that it seems like they've drawn a hard line in the sand, the NCAA, saying that they're not going to penalize the student athletes of Michigan during the season. I will say this, though. Big Ten has shut down their investigation, which which was really never an investigation. They were using the information that the NCAA gave them. But there's nowhere in this letter to the Big Ten, to Michigan, and Michigan's response, there's nowhere in there that NCAA has promised that they're not going to hand something more down here in the last couple weeks of the season. I don't think they will, but there's nothing in there that says NCAA is going to, completely not do anything. They probably won't, but it doesn't look like there was a promise made.
Well, I don't think the Big Ten has the teeth that the NCAA has anyhow.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at where the biggest hits are going to come from, biggest punishments are always going to come from the NCAA. But like you mentioned, there are a lot of advantages, inappropriate advantages that come from knowing to play in advance. And there are increased risks, I think, to opposing players for injury. I mean, any of us who've played this sport at any level know that when you practice against the same guys who have the same plays 5 weeks in a row, then what happens is people start cheating on the play. They know what's going to happen, and people can get injured. They can get hurt because you know where to run full speed instead of having to. That split second can make a big difference when you're talking about big men in the Big Ten. And there's just got to be a way. The NCAA's got to figure out a way to have some legitimate consequences on the adults that are getting paid millions of dollars that are making these decisions. You look at Pete Carroll, you look at these individuals who have been caught cheating in the past, and the school will get injured or they'll vacate somebody's wins. Students will have to transfer, and these coaches go somewhere else and make more money. And as long as that continues, there's going to be an incentive to cheat.
Yeah. Yeah, great comments, Charles. Great comments. People benefit from cheating. That's all there is to it. This is a case where not only do they have a lot of evidence, but we as the public have seen the evidence by videotape. I mean, when we talk about this, we usually forget about what happened at the Central Michigan State game. We all see the video. We all see Connor Stallion standing on the sideline wearing his sunglasses that night, potentially videotaping Michigan State with those sunglasses. I mean, who knows? Who knows where this goes, Charles? Who knows how big this gets? But I think Michigan is trying to get on the right side of history. The institution is inside the Big Ten.
What I fear as a fan of college football is that you end up getting public blowback, similar to what the MLB faced when they had their steroid scandal, right?
Yeah.
So when the winner of the World Series 3 or 4 years in a row is winning because some guy's roiding so he can hit a bunch of home runs, then people stop caring as much. So if a quarter of the teams in your playoff the last 3 years in a row are there because they're cheating, you're going to see an impact also in the rest of the sport. But
no,
I've
you're
talked
right.
for long enough, so I'll let you go.
You're right. Great call, Charles. Thank you so much. Beautiful call. Call again, sir.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Great call by Charles. Crab cakes and football. Mr. Terrapin, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate your generosity to the channel, helping us keep the lights on. Maybe Michigan folds against Maryland. Did you mean to say forfeit or folds? I think you probably meant to say folds. Michigan at Maryland this Saturday without their head coach, Jim Harbaugh. And again, kind of interesting, right? Because Michigan was rallying around the coach not being there. Michigan all fired up, all their beat writers and website owners and radio shows, almost all of them. Grand conspiracy. This is a smear job. The Big Ten did not act in accordance to what Tony Petitti can do. All this stuff. Ryan Day's brother He was the one who started this. A lot of smoke, a lot of deflection in the air. But now what is their deflection? What is their rallying cry? There isn't any. Other than Michigan has an outstanding football program, outstanding 2023 football team. Yes, Charles made some good comments about how, yeah, but it's still sort of, well, not real. But Michigan at this point can challenge for the Big Ten championship, go for the national title. That's the rallying cry that's going to be there. But this whole thing about Michigan being the victim, now the question is, a victim of what? What exactly is the Michigan a victim of? They've stood down. They're not challenging anything. Look, I'm going to show you something here. Here it is, Pete Thamel, ESPN. Here's the court filing in the Washtenaw County Court that says the case, Harbaugh, James J. versus the Big Ten Conference Incorporated has been dismissed. It's been dismissed. So Michigan is not the victim. They never were. And so again, I asked Michigan Wolverine fans who have left us in droves here at Peek Around the Corner, who told you the truth about this? Who just gave you the story about this? And then who made up a bunch of you know what about this? You decide. You decide. Let me get back to the comments. The phone lines are back open. Thank you, Crab Cakes and Football, for your generosity once again to the channel. I appreciate it. George D., what are the odds of Michigan getting an NCAA death penalty? I would say slim to none, and Slim just left town. Slim to none, and Slim just left town. Because, first of all, the NCAA giving out death penalties, that doesn't happen anymore. But number two, this is what Michigan is getting out of it today. They're getting on the right side of history. You know, let's go back. Let's go back a little bit here. October 18th, it was the NCAA, Michigan, and the Big Ten having a meeting. Michigan's legal counsel was there. They had a meeting. The evidence was starting to be provided from the NCAA to Michigan on October 18th. It was starting to be provided to Michigan before Michigan State played Michigan. Hold on one second.
Call from
JD.
JD, can you hold on one? I just got to finish my thought here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. So on October 18th, NCAA, Big Ten, Michigan, the legal counsel in Michigan, the president, all got together. Michigan started getting the evidence at that point. Big Ten had it a few days earlier. On October 19th, nothing happened to Connie Stallions. On October 20th, Tony Petitti called Michigan and said, what are you going to do about it? Michigan finally suspended Connie Stallions. So Michigan had that evidence all the way up 3 weeks before the Big Ten made the ruling. That's due process. Big Ten had a whole lot of evidence. Big Ten met with the athletic directors, the coaches, the presidents at least twice, and with the University of Michigan. Also got the Big Ten board to agree on a 2-game suspension, which is in the authority, the space of the commissioner, to a 3-game suspension, which is out of the authority of the Big Ten commissioner based upon Big Ten bylaws. But he got the okay because the other 13 universities were hot. So this is where we're at. Michigan finally, I believe today, probably, or yesterday, this is my speculation now. The NCAA delivered more evidence this week. The NCAA, the Big Ten, and Michigan got together and talked again. All three of them. Again, my speculation. And Michigan decided at that point to help possibly mitigate the penalties that are going to be coming in 2, 3, 4, 5 months from now from the NCAA. This is the agreement we have to make. We have to get on the right side of history. We said at Peek Around the Corner, Michigan was Michigan before Jim Harbaugh. Michigan's going to be Michigan after Jim Harbaugh. During Jim Harbaugh, it's not Michigan. This is, I think, what happened this week. JD, Mr. Seminole, thank you so much for your patience. The floor is yours.
Hey, Greg. I was a little late joining the show, but I think I kind of caught the gist of everything. And you might have already addressed this, or somebody else might have already called in and talked about this, but I think Tony Petitti saw it was in the Big Ten's best interest to get this out of the news as quick as possible. Granted, the Michigan's the one that's under the microscope. They're the ones that are catching all the slack. But if this goes on much longer, and then obviously, like you just said, that obviously more evidence was provided, which could, further implicate them in the potential punishments or suspensions could be significantly worse. Yes, it was in Michigan's best interest to go ahead and let's just squash this, accept the suspension and move on. But it's in the Big Ten's best interest too. Okay, because when mud starts flinging, maybe Michigan throws out allegations for other schools that are accurate in other aspects or whatever. But it's also a public perception. When you're one of the two preeminent conferences, you don't need this in the news. The SEC doesn't want this in the news for their conference. The Big Ten doesn't want this in the news for them. The taint is there. The season is tainted now for Michigan. They're never going to get that back.
Yes.
There's always going to be an asterisk here forever. Okay?
Yep.
But, the Big Ten, again, I think Tony Petitti also has avoided any political fallout in the future now
Absolutely.
Against him, because now Michigan has accepted the repercussions.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Absolutely. Tony Petitti sits in a very strong position right now. Let me just get to a couple comments, JD. Kenneth Evans, the Big Ten folded. I don't know if you're trolling or what. This is not Big Ten folding. This is the complete opposite. Complete opposite. The Big Ten, they're not folding this. The Big Ten, Tony Petitti handed down a punishment. Remember how many people said that the Big Ten wasn't actually going to get into this during the season, and we thought they would? So the Big Ten acted. Tony Petitti got a whole bunch of arrows thrown at him by a bunch of college football reporters. This is the opposite of Big Ten folding. The absolute opposite. And then I'm seeing some comments saying Kenneth Evans against. There won't be anything from the NCAA. Stop joking. I'm not joking. The NCAA has I'm sorry, JD. Give me one more minute.
Are you good?
I apologize, Mr. Seminole. Sorry about this. The NCAA, I'm going to give you guys another strong hint here. The NCAA has already acted much differently than they normally do in these investigations. One is because it had to do with sportsmanship. Number two, it had to do with the health of the players. Number three, they have overwhelming evidence. Number four, it could be because the investigation firm gave them evidence. The investigation firm that they know, maybe the NCAA has already acted. They gave the Big Ten information right away when they got the information from the investigation firm. The NCAA has already acted differently than historical norms. So if you're thinking NCAA is not going to hand down any penalties against Michigan, man, send me a DM after the show. We'll make a wager on it. I'm not a betting man, other than I lose all my plays against the spread. But you know what I'm saying? The NCAA is definitely going to act, just like the Big Ten did. JD, I apologize. Go ahead.
No, you're fine, sir. You're fine, and I agree with what you're saying. And again, it was in the Big Ten. I mean, don't get me wrong. Michigan's, opponents or their rivals were probably reveling in this a little bit there for, the last month or however long this has been going on. But now it's reached the point where, again, it's not good for anybody involved. This needs to get out of the news, at least from this aspect. It needs to get out of the news now, and just move along. Your last caller that I heard was talking about the baseball scandals, the cheating scandals, and everything else, or something happens in the NFL when it's players, gambling, even though they weren't gambling on their games, they were still gambling, and that opens up the door, whether it's point shaving or whatever. You see those leagues, they try to shut it down as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And I mean at light speed. And, for the Big Ten, like it's been discussed here, the harshest penalty they could levy is a 3-game suspension. Well, now that it's been accepted, yeah. And with all this, it's gone, and they want to move on. And then,
the harder penalties is going to be by the NCAA.
Exactly.
The Big Ten did as much as they possibly could, as quick as they possibly could. I don't know what is Tony Petitti guilty of exactly in this scenario. I don't understand it. I think people are either trolling or they haven't been paying attention to the story. He acted as quickly as he possibly could, and he still got a lot of arrows thrown at him. All the people who threw the arrows at him, what is their statement today on this? Tony Petitti now has a much stronger position politically as a very new Big Ten commissioner than he did 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. The Michigan stood down. Tony Petitti had a mountain of evidence, and he had the political cover, and he had the space and the political support within the Big Ten, and he had the grapefruits to do what he did. JD, you can go ahead, finish the call. I appreciate your call.
Petitti's been fair. He didn't rush to judgment. He waited for the evidence. A lot of people want him to make statements on certain days, go ahead and act in a certain manner. It seems like he's just been fair. Really haven't seen him getting up in front of the microphone a whole lot. He's been more or less been governing from, the background. And, I think he's done a great job up to this point. I know he's been only been in the position for a short period of time, but like you said, I think the penalties and the way this has been handled by the Big Ten, I think they've handled it perfectly so far. And anybody, and I'm fixing to wind this down.
Yep.
Anybody that, well, let's just say this: if you're a Michigan fan and if you're upset, what if this had been Ohio State? What would have been your reaction?
Yeah.
And if you can, and people that are upset won't, automatically suggest, oh, well, I'd feel the same way. But in their heart of hearts, they know it's different. And if you can't take your fandom out of just reasonable assessments of right and wrong, well, then you kind of already know the answer.
Yeah.
And just, if my team was doing this, every team skirts it in some way, shape, or form. This was different. Everybody knows this was different. Yeah. But anyway, that's all. That's all.
Beautiful.
But
thanks for the call, sir.
After the rest of your show.
Got it. Thanks, JD. Okay, phone lines are open. I know we just missed a call. Give me a call back, 763-260-1333. Now, I'm okay with people disagreeing. That's how this show goes. But be careful with the trolling. Be careful with the trolling because there's a certain set of facts that we know about this case. That's all I'm gonna say. For example,
Call from
John Smith.
John Smith, thanks for calling. Can you hold 1 second?
Yes.
AER here now. Who isn't stealing signs in college football? Again, this case is not about stealing signs. This is about in-person scouting. I want the chat room. I'm just giving everybody a warning. I had already put somebody on a timeout. The constant trolling. I'm interested in people disagreeing with each other, but there's a certain level of things that we know about this. So we're not going backwards with the story. John Smith, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir.
Oh, thank you. I just want to say thank you to all the Big Ten fans, to all the Little Ten, the ones that we support. I want to say thank you to everybody that take on the shield for Ohio State because, like I said last time I called, they'll be up here next week. We are waiting. And everything y'all talking about, which is cool. That's why we took the 3 games. Because we're going to show Ohio. This is all about Ohio State. You know what? I understand everything that came out. It's cool. But see, what y'all don't understand, that us in Michigan, we fought a war against Ohio State. Just Ohio, the state of Ohio. It's different than what y'all think it is. The hatred is different. All of y'all is on y'all feelings for y'all ESPN, everybody. I understand we did wrong. Okay, we wrong. But we took the punishment, and we showed you last week. It don't matter. You can't stop us. The game going to be played. I don't care what happens. I don't care what happened in courts. I don't care what happened in the point of opinion. The game is going to be played, and they can't stop us from playing. And by that rule, we going to kick butt. And we don't care. They can't stop us from the playoffs. They can't stop us from the championship. They can't stop none of that. All they're going to do next year is give us our penalty, but Harbaugh ain't going nowhere. Don't y'all see by now Michigan standing by Harbaugh. He's not going nowhere. If we was going to fire him, we'd have fired him when we lost 6 straight to Ohio State, but we didn't do it. We reprogrammed everything. We got everything back together. See, the party is everybody over here talking about how bad we are. We cheating. No, we got better recruits. We got better coaches. We a better team. We are Michigan. We started college football. Y'all wouldn't be playing football. Oh, other than Minnesota. I understand y'all won y'all championships in the 30s, and then y'all part of this Big Ten from the start. And I want to say thank you, Gophers, because I took a picture with Will Brown Judge last week. And I want to send you one because you ain't seen it in a long time. I understand.
We might be doing you a favor this Saturday.
Yeah.
When we play the Buckeyes. Yeah. Probably not, though.
Yeah, no. Y'all going to get the same results that everybody else get. We the only one could beat them. We the only team in the Big Ten that they scared of. That's why they doing this. All y'all is little 8,
now,
little
John,
10. You see little 8. You see little 8.
John.
But now it's a little 10.
John, let me just say something. Now,
go ahead.
Okay, I first of all, I love when you call the show because you do it in a respectful manner. You bring a great Michigan perspective. I love your calls, okay? That's number one. Number two, I agree with you. Michigan is unbelievable, great football team. We said that. You and I have. They're unbelievable. They could win the whole thing.
We started college football.
Huh? Okay.
We started college football.
I got it. No, I got it. I understand it. But number three is the last time you called this a clown show, which is fine. But I want to tell you something, John. In regards to this event that happened, in regards to all the reports that have come out, this show shot it to you straight, John Smith. We shot it to you straight. At least you got to say that. Whether it means anything in the long run or in the short run, maybe not, maybe so. but we shot it to you straight, Mr. Smith. We gave you the right information.
Okay, I just want to say this to you and all your listeners. You haven't stopping us. We're going to complete this 1,000 victories, the most in college football history. Just like Houston Astros. Oh, everybody's on their bandwagon hating on them. They won the world championship. Nobody cares. Moved on. This is the ESPN. I understand what's going on here. It's cool. We get something wrong. We go pay the price. But you're not going to eliminate the Big Blue. We are the Block M. We are the Big Ten. And all this hatred towards us is because you're some losers. All you other fans and losing fan bases don't understand that you helping the devil beat us. You really none of y'all going to beat Ohio State. None of your programs, none of the Big Ten programs gonna come close. We the only one. Y'all hating us because we kick their butt. That's why they hate us, because they can't beat us. It ain't about, they don't even worry about Minnesota, Iowa, Indiana, Illinois. Y'all can leave the Big Ten and let the West Coast come over, and we'll be just fine. We'll be just fine, because all the sports in the Big Ten, Michigan Stadium, we subsidize all your sports without just 100,000 fans every week. Thank you, Big Ten. Thank you for thankful for being a part of the Big Ten with us. You're just a part of the Big Ten with us. We are the Big Ten. But you know what? I'm talking out the side of my head because I'm a Michigan man. All this hatred is cool. We expect it. But the devil is Ohio. It's Ohio State, and y'all thinking, oh, we eliminated Michigan, but Ohio State goes continually stomp on you. Thank you. But we the only ones going to beat them. And watch Saturday, next Saturday, we're going to shut everybody up. I told you that before. We're going to shut all the noise up. We're going to win. Go ahead. You can talk.
Well, no, I agree. You very well might win the whole thing because
we will.
But let me say this now. Early in the call, John Smith said to Greg Pflugar, the fat guy from Minnesota, he said, okay, we did something wrong. We're going to get penalized. And that is all that I said. That's all that I've said reported on this story. I didn't say, wait. So I have to be, to maintain my credibility, John Smith, and it's taken me years to build up that credibility with the stories we've broken here. I had to be as accurate as possible. So John, you just said I was accurate. And I thank you and I respect that from you. Now, going forward.
I respect that. But your fans, the people that call, they're some misinformed people. They're blinded by the fact that Ohio State is the devil. We got a couple Buckeyes in the chat. We did. Look, I had a whole bunch of Wolverines in the chat. They're scared of us.
But they all left me.
They are scared. I'm going to see them at Michigan State. I'm going to be in front of the stadium with a sign. And I'm going to greet all of them. Losers. Thanks for coming.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it, John.
I appreciate it. I'll call you back after we win. And hail to the victors.
Hail to the victors.
I appreciate your honesty. And I appreciate the way you run your show. And I love the peek around the corner. I just love it.
Thank you,
everybody should watch your show. You're doing great. But you know what? Hail to the victors. Ohio State is scared. They're scared.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. It's getting hot in here. It's getting hot.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate, can you hold on 1 second, sir?
Press 1. To send a voicemail,
Whoops.
press 2.
I'm sorry. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, I apologize. I'm hitting the wrong buttons. Hey, if Mireya is listening to me, can you please turn on the air conditioning? It is getting hot in here, especially after John Smith called. And Immaculate, according to the moderator, I have to play a little bit of the mariachi music because Skull Ducky brought another member into the PATC community last night. So I'm just going to play a little bit of it, Immaculate. I apologize.
You should probably do what she said.
Yes. Here we go. Congratulations, Skull Ducky, Oregon Duck. Brought another duck in the world, a Big Ten duck this time. Okay, Immaculate. Big news. Maybe not surprising, but still big. Michigan has stood down.
I'm talking to you today purely as an Iowa fan now. Like, I wasn't even going to call in again today. I've already talked to you once today. But now we're having fun.
Yes.
I like the last caller, but he made a little call out, so now I'm calling in.
Yes. Go ahead. Let it rip.
Idea. How did we go from Michigan folks, I think even him saying they could leave the Big Ten, to all of y'all could just go ahead and leave the Big Ten. We got this. But no, it doesn't work that way. You only got one vote. If you want to leave, you go ahead. But we're fine right here. And I'm pretty sure if I go back in history and look, Iowa's beat y'all plenty of times. Saying that maybe right now it's a little bit tough.
Yeah.
Because you guys got all the recruiting going on. But that can always change. We're going to see.
Yeah.
Oregon comes in here maybe. USC comes in, beats you all a couple times. You're not going to have full run of all the recruits anymore. But number one, what is with this now all of a sudden that this came out? The rhetoric has completely flipped to, we're going to leave, we're going to do all this, to now you guys don't see it. Ohio State is the devil.
Yeah,
you guys could just go ahead and leave because we got this held down. No, you were just talking a day ago about leaving. How are you saying you got this held down? I don't quite get it. I like the guy, but I don't quite get it. Can you help me understand this?
There's been different alliterations of what the Michigan fan base and the beat writers. There's always seems to be a new theme every 3 days, and now it's about the Big Ten is not the evil one because Michigan basically stood down. So now it's all about beat Ohio State. Well, it's always been about that anyways, and we're going to dominate. We don't care. Give us the penalty months from now. I think the penalty is going to be pretty harsh, to be honest with you, when it does happen. I don't know if it's going to be loss of scholarships or bowl ban. I have no idea, but it's going to be something more than what the Big Ten just did. But yeah, there's a lot of themes now that the Big Ten beat writers cannot use anymore. So,
Also, if the Big Ten had never come out and said anything about they were looking into acting on this or doing anything, no one would have even expected the Big Ten to do anything on this because that's generally not the role played by the conferences. And everyone's got the same complaints that the NCAA is slow. Well, yeah, they are. And that's part of why everyone is coming after them these days. But still, to expect, until there's change in that regard, to expect the Big Ten to come out and deliver some whopping blow to Michigan, it just wasn't very realistic from the beginning. This was basically a statement from the rest of the Big Ten, and I mean presidents, leadership, to Michigan, saying this is not acceptable. They don't need to destroy Michigan. That's not in their business interest to do that. Their interest is to get the point across, and I think that just happened because this was Michigan dropping and dismissing their complaints. This wasn't the other way around. This wasn't the Big Ten dropping anything. The Big Ten did what they did and said, we don't have any other plans right now going forward. Well, number one, because they're waiting to see what the NCAA investigation has. So, Michigan saying, well, we're dropping this because they don't have any other plans. Well, they didn't have, it wasn't like the Big Ten said we don't have plans if you drop this case. They did what they did, and they were waiting on the NCAA, and the Michigan turns this into going, well, since that they're not going any further, we'll dismiss this case. That just doesn't pass the smell test.
Yeah. Like
that's not how this is going. They just something happened that made them go, "Whoa, we don't want this to come out in court. We don't want discovery. We're dropping this." And then they're phrasing it like, "Well, it's because the Big Ten's not doing anymore." I mean, that's
it's if it's a victory, it's a hollow victory. I'm putting up on screen, Immaculate, Dan Wetzel. Now, remember, he put out an article that I used the Big Ten Huddle tweet, a Twitter account, that went point by point. Basically, I'm trying to be nice here, but basically, you know what? I'm not going to even go down that road. But here's Dan Wetzel basically went out and said that Tony Petitti is wrong, over his head, said a whole bunch of things about the Big Ten commissioner in his decision. Well, now Dan Wetzel puts out a tweet saying Big Ten, Michigan Harbaugh agreement essentially ends the battle, at least for now. Big Ten gets his 3-game suspension of Harbaugh. Michigan Harbaugh don't have to fear future suspensions should they get into the playoff or further evidence or allegations arise. I would change that a little bit, Dan Wetzel, and say Michigan don't have to fear future suspensions should they get in the playoff or further evidence of allegations arise from the Big Ten. They may have to fear from the NCAA, probably not for the rest of the season, but this deal in no way stops the NCAA from handing something down early. They're not going to do it. They're probably not going to do it. But Dan Wetzel, this is a long ways away from your article in which a whole bunch of college football reporters supported you in that article where you said that Tony Petitti acted incorrectly. Obviously, Tony Petitti did act correctly. Again, Immaculate, the floor is yours. Sorry about that.
No. I don't mind. I like having a conversation with you on this stuff. But it's just I get it. There's some people who just don't like the Big Ten, and that's fine.
Oh, that's fine. Yes. Yep.
But the judgment that comes out should be reasonable. Like, I don't know what people actually expected of the Big Ten. Like, do you expect the Big Ten to come in and crush Michigan? That's like expecting the SEC to come in and crush. I'm not going to say Alabama. Well, I'll say Alabama now because Georgia's their number one brand. But, or expecting the Pac to come in and crush USC, back when they were all together, or any of that. Like, it's kind of silly. This was a purely internal statement made, and it played out in public a bit because Michigan decided to, go very public. That's their choice. But everything that the Big Ten did was behind the scenes. It was the statement from the rest of the conference, including the rest of the schools, saying you went too far.
Yeah.
Here's the penalty you're getting. It's the same penalty you put on your coach at the beginning of the year. We're not even overstepping what you did.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's 1 game over a 2-game suspension means it's a statement that the conference supports this. And that's all it is. It was, people want to call that a slap on the wrist or whatever they want to call it.
And I think the Big Ten had an ace in the sleeve. I'm going to put up this Trey Wallace. Michigan's Jim Harbaugh accepts suspension, will not fight in court after the Big Ten agreed to end its inquiry. The Wolverines knew that further punishment was a possibility from the Big Ten, so Jim Harbaugh laid down his sword. I don't think the possibility was all that great that the Big Ten was going to come in and do more punishment before the end of the season. However, Immaculate, I do believe, and here's the thing that the evidence is so overwhelming, and there's stuff that hasn't even come out yet, and there's still investigation going on with CMU and potentially other stuff and now Michigan's gotten more evidence. So I think Michigan completely had to fold on this because the evidence was always the story of this story. And I think the Wolverines were getting a little bit nervous. Oh my goodness, more stuff is going to come out. Let's just stop the hemorrhaging right now. We'll handle it 3 or 4 or 5 months from now.
Yeah, and the way this is phrased, I get how someone might think that this is quid pro quo. But if I'm not mistaken, the Big Ten, once they handed this suspension down, said they weren't doing any more.
Yeah.
Like they said, okay, we're now waiting to see what the NCAA investigation brings forth. Like, to me, it feels like it's improperly connecting the two. That as like the Big Ten agreed to stop investigating as long as they would drop their case. But even there, he even kind of said after the Big Ten agreed to do that, they agreed to drop their case. Well, that doesn't mean the Big Ten said, hey, if you'll do that, we'll do this. No, the Big Ten just did that because they made their statement and were then looking to the NCAA to actually do their job, which we all probably know is not going to happen in any quick time, but that's a different problem. That's a different thing to tackle, and that's being tackled about the NCAA, and maybe some of their governance needs to be taken away from them, and maybe then the conferences should do something. Because look at this. If the Big Ten did have that type of governance over itself, they could have done this much more quickly, but they don't. They're part of the NCAA, and that level of governance, that level of punishment falls to the NCAA to do. So really, this is the Big Ten saying, hey, we could have did more on the own, but we don't have all of this investigative power and authority.
Now,
so they are part of the NCAA.
Now, a very interesting tweet just popped up. I'm not going to call it breaking news on Immaculate. Nicole Arbach. I think everybody needs to look at this. The Big Ten is now deferring to the NCAA in its penalty process. The Big Ten will not impose any additional penalties against Michigan unless the NCAA proves that one or more of Michigan's countable coaches were involved in the Connie Stallion scheme, a league source told me. So it looks like when they came up with this agreement that if NCAA pushes evidence towards the Big Ten here in the last couple of weeks, showing that they have proof that another coach was involved, then maybe the league can do more punishment. That's what it sounds like from this tweet. But I'm guessing Big Ten is probably done acting no matter what on this. But I just want to point that out.
Yeah, and if you keep that whole Auerbach fully is, yes, she writes for the Athletic.
Yes.
But she was also hired by NBC as the what's the terminology? She's the person of theirs that deals with the Big Ten.
Yes.
Yeah. So the Big Ten told her this.
Yes.
That's why she had the first call on it. Everyone else was quoting her. And that's why she's then come out with this. That's how quickly they put out a response to this to say, look, here's the reality. We were already done.
Yes.
Michigan decided this on their own and then phrased this in a way to make it look like they got a little tit for tat. To make their own fans happy, their donors, whatever. It doesn't look good. But like I said, the NCAA investigation is ongoing. That's their job to do anything major. The Big Ten, via Petitti, made their statement to Michigan. It wasn't, yes, they did the penalty to Harbaugh, but the statement was to Michigan. That's why Ono is getting so pissed and so out this. I mean, it's on him. That's from his peers. That's from top level at the other schools. Maybe people don't get that because this is a little bit more political being played out than it was punitive. I mean, and people might think it's not enough. Well, it's not for you. Like the message is not for you. It's not to make you feel better or worse or whatever. Yeah. This was between the top level people in the Big Ten. And for them, that kind of a statement is a big deal. I mean, look at how kind of nutty that president was starting to act in public. I mean, you felt it.
Yes.
So, I mean, for people to understand, like, that's why he's acting that way, because his peers were coming on to him. And that's when a president like that starts to think, how is my school going to look at me now? Like, he's probably feeling like maybe he's on a hot seat. So, you know, he came out and did what he had to do to protect himself. I get that.
Yeah.
But this falls on the NCAA. And if they don't come at this now very strong, very hard, and very quick, this is actually quite a brilliant way to make the NCAA look bad when, in my opinion, there's governance trying to be taken away from the NCAA. And this actually helps in that regard because the Big Ten could have did more if they would have had more governing ability, which they don't have.
Yeah.
And so that's my piece on that. I don't want to just keep harping in that direction, but I think you get the point is that, to me, and some others are saying, I think actually Petitti showed his chops in this.
Yes.
Some will disagree.
I
that's
agree.
all I got on that, man. Just
all right, man.
Say, Michigan, you can stay. We'll let you stay. But just remember, you might be winning on the field, but you only got one vote. I'll leave it at that.
That's true. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Great call by Immaculate. John Bacon, a man I highly respect. What's his official job title? Whoops. Sorry about that. New York Times bestseller. Writes a lot about Michigan football and everything. Look, this is the guy who I had a little bit of a conversation with on Twitter, arguing with them. He came out and said that Tony Petitti is in over his head because of what he did to Michigan. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. John Bacon says there are a few rational reasons why Michigan settled. Due process argument might fail. Of course it was going to fail. Helpful to establish a finite punishment to reduce distractions. Yes. Big Ten. Limit Big Ten punishment. But can't imagine a scenario where Michigan thought it was certain to win and had nothing to lose and still settle. And then John Bacon says, Michigan football losing head coach Jim Harbaugh won't affect the team versus Maryland. If Michigan can beat Penn State on the road, this would be easier. But the Ohio State-Michigan game has always required all hands on deck from both sides. I don't think that's a sacrifice Michigan made lightly. Maybe not, but I will say if Jim Harbaugh had no idea that Connor Stallions was getting this information the way he was doing it and helping the defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators for the if Jim Harbaugh did not know any of this was going on, then I don't think Michigan needs Jim Harbaugh to beat the Buckeyes. I think maybe Jim Harbaugh's just the figurehead. I know that's shocking to say, but look, he didn't know. He had no idea what was going on. So I don't know. Maybe they won't be affected by Jim Harbaugh not being on the sideline. What was he doing on the sideline? Mike Smith, the 3-game suspension Petitti gave Jim and Michigan backing down is a win for Petitti. I don't know how an easy 3-game suspension is a win for Petitti. Kenneth Evans, this is the last time we're going to explain it to you. The commissioner could not have done any more than that. And there were so many people in the chat saying that Tony Petitti wasn't going to do anything. So, of course, this is a win for Tony Petitti. How could you... First of all, are you saying Tony Petitti lost? This is the most that the commissioner could do. Actually, it's more than what he could do stated in the Big Ten bylaws. He had to get support. He had to get a vote from the Big Ten. There was only so many games left to go in the season. You can't have it all certain ways. Not enough due process. Wasn't having enough hit on Michigan. You can't have it both ways. It's an absolute win for Tony Petitti. Now, what will the NCAA do? Will it be too much, too little? That's all up for debate. But my goodness, I don't understand. Don't understand that logic, or not. There's no logic to that.
Call from
Steve.
Steve, Mr. Bearcat, the floor is yours. What do you got to say, sir?
I didn't get to talk to you this morning, so I thought I'd call this afternoon. I'm sorry for my dog.
Nope. I'm a dog lover. The dog can make as much noise as he wants. Not a problem.
He's 11 years old, and he thinks he can do anything he wants, and he usually gets to.
And he can. As far as I'm concerned, he's got the floor as well. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, he'll let you know he's here sometime.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I want to take this a little different angle than what's been talked about thus far, Greg. You had mentioned there are people on the inside of Michigan that weren't really on board the way this was being handled by PATC and some other people. Was the attorney that was going to bring this into the court system yesterday, was he not a graduate of Michigan?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think, because I've got my opinion about this, do you think that some of the people who are not on board there's more than what we may think, that got to him and said, hey, better put the brakes on this, whether it be a booster, whether it be somebody in academics, whether it be somebody in the administration, you better put the brakes on this, because if you open another can of worms and we look not so good, you could do a lot more damage. Do you think that could have happened?
Well, we only know, we know PATC knows of at least one Board of Regents member who did not like what was going on. And I think that's probably going to come out here real soon. Beyond that, it's just speculation on my part, Steve. I think there was more movement or more evidence early this week. I bet I'm speculating, but I'm thinking the NCAA, the Big Ten of Michigan, got together once again. There was some more evidence showed to the president of Michigan, and they had to cut their losses. They got to get on the right side of history. Hopefully this helps mitigate some of the punishment that the NCAA is going to hand out to Michigan months from now. That is speculation on my part. I don't really have the info that you're asking, other than we know there was at least one Board of Regents member who said, this ain't good. This ain't cool.
Well, I don't know what I only know what I know. And I'm not going to delve into it real deep, but there's more people than one Board of Regents that's not happy with what's going on, and they're pretty influential. And I'll just leave it at that. And that's why I think that there may have been some counterpoint from people within, quote, the Michigan family that said, we better rethink this. And I kind of believe that. So anyhow, just my 2 cents worth, Greg. Wanted to hear, what you thought, if there was any inside pressure as to don't do this tomorrow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I don't. And I'm speculating again, but I think maybe we'll probably get some reports on the internal happenings at Michigan.
Yeah.
By the
sooner
early
or
next
later,
week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, that will all come out publicly.
Yeah.
So, all right, my man. Appreciate the show. Just wanted to touch base.
You got it, buddy. Thank you, Steve, Mr. Bearcat, and his dog. Appreciate it, sir.
All right.
again, the phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get notified of the next time we're coming up live or doing an episode. We cover everything in college football. Everything at college football's peak around the corner. If you like our content, if you like how we deliver it, smash the like button. And if you want to support this show through a donation, hit the $ in the comments, and we'll get to your comment as soon as possible. We thank you for all coming on in. This is our second live show of the day. Hopefully there's not more breaking news, or Mireya, the moderator who rules with an iron fist, might have my head on a platter. So the phone lines are open. Let me see if there's any breaking news on this story. A lot of good information coming through here since we've been on live. There's really not any more talk of Michigan being the grand victim of all this. And really, other than John Smith, the great caller, Michigan Wolverines, there's really no talk of Ohio State being the one that started all this. That it was Ryan Day's brother with his investigation firm that started all this. You're not getting that anymore. There's a whole bunch of stories. Coming out of Maize and Blue, Michigan 247, Steve Dace. You can list them. A long list of a whole bunch of just stuff out there that was not accurate at all. A lot of bad disinformation coming out. And, you know, a lot of Michigan fans have been mad at me. A lot of DMs directed at me, a lot, and they haven't stopped. Well, you know, Michigan standing down here should give you an indication of how much evidence there is against the in-person scouting of the University of Michigan. Jim Harbaugh, still no evidence that he was directly involved, and that might be the case the whole way through. But it doesn't matter. It's still prohibited. In-person scouting is prohibited. No matter if your head coach knows it or not. Tony Petitti had to step in, and he done so. And there isn't really Michigan being the victim isn't really a line that can be used anymore. But Michigan, Ohio State, the game, it's going to be electric. It's going to be electric. It's going to be incredible. The ratings on that game, both teams going to be undefeated, 11-0, 11-0. The winner goes to the Big Ten championship game. Highly favored to go 13-0 and go to the college football playoffs. It's going to be exciting. Big game. The Buckeyes versus the Wolverines. I think we're going to shut down this live show. It's our second one of the day. We were not going to go on for very long, but we had to do it. We had to come in here. Breaking news. Breaking news. Michigan has stood down. They're not going to debate anymore. They're not going to take it to court. Jim Harbaugh, 3-game suspension, 2 games left on his suspension. The deal is done. Big Ten's going to wrap up their investigation. No more penalties unless something major happens, but it doesn't look like it. NCAA will take care of the rest of the penalties. Months from now, we shall see what happens. But you look, there is so much more to this story that we know right now in public. And one big example is the Central Michigan sidelines, where Connor Stallions was wearing sunglasses at night. That big story, well, I think that's a big story. And that's just one part of this ongoing investigation from the NCAA. But Michigan, the Wolverines, they can win the Big Ten. They can win the national championship. Jim Harbaugh, it sounds like he could quite possibly be on the sidelines when Michigan is in the college football playoffs. That's a whole nother story that we're going to have to keep an eye on, see if the NCAA acts on that if they need to do so. Before you leave the chat, please subscribe to the channel, smash the like button, hit the notification bell. I want to thank you all for joining us once again on our second live show today. Keep your head on a swivel. There's so much going on in the college football world. Big games this week, week 12. Stick with us here at College Football. Peek around the corner. Until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so